private sector holds the key to fighting climate change. This is according to the CEO of the International Finance Corporation, Philippe Le Houérou, when he released the corporation's Climate Investment Opportunities report yesterday. So the report also finds that policy reforms and innovation can unlock trillions in climate finance. Saleem Karimjee is the IFC Country Manager for Southern Africa. He's in studio and he's ready to have a conversation with us. Good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you, Leah.
So let's talk about what exactly the Climate Investment Opportunities Report is. What does it focus on?
So what the report does is to identify ways in which the private sector can be involved in mitigating and adapting to climate change.
Yeah.
Climate change is often thought of as a government issue, or if you want, not an issue that the private sector can do very much about. On the contrary, we believe that the private sector is a key role player, more important perhaps than any other part of society.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, what you also go on to say is that the African private business actually have the opportunity to become regional and global leaders in this field.
Yes. It's one of those ironies that because Africa is still a developing continent, there are ways in which we can use technology, modern technology, to leapfrog certain old ways of doing things that were climate negative, adopt new technologies that are far less impactful on the climate.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We're going to see today. I was reading that there's actually going to be a federal report to give an in-depth look on climate change in the United States. Now, we know that there is a president there that doesn't necessarily even believe in climate change. And that, I think, is going to be quite shocking because there's no getting away from it. It doesn't matter where you live or who you are. Climate change is affecting every single industry and every single person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a real shame that the President of the United States is in denial about it. But I think the rest of the world understands the issue, believes that it's an issue, and will do what needs to be done, whether or not the United States comes along.
Yeah. I suppose it is because he's promising more industry, and with industry, unfortunately, does become essential where you are affecting the environment and climate change henceforth. However, I just want to bring it back to Africa here because what was quite interesting was yesterday you also it was also spoken about creating markets for climate change. You've identified 7 different industries. What do you mean by this?
So there are. Let me use a specific example in it. It's interesting. The previous speaker was talking about ways in which to improve yields in agriculture. So climate smart agriculture is one of the spaces where we believe a huge amount can be done. Agriculture is not typically associated with climate change, but it is actually deeply affected by climate change and contributes to climate change as well. So by developing ways in which you can farm in a resource efficient manner, whether that is water efficiency, land efficiency, energy efficiency, you can reduce climate change.
Yeah, so there's many.
Yes. So the previous speaker was talking about genetically modified seeds. If they would be used to reduce the need for water or to increase yields per hectare. That's smart. That's climate smart agriculture. And that's an area in which the private sector, which is the sector of society that produces food, can play a huge role.
You keep talking about the private sector, but what about government? I mean, how do they contribute and how can they help when it comes to the climate change discourse?
Policies, primarily.
Okay.
Yeah. Governments can put in place policies that enable the private sector to do what needs to be done in terms of climate change. Make it easier, attract new technology into the country. That's the main role of government. Not to solve the problem, but to make it easier for the private sector to solve the problem.
Just finally, we've spoken about the US, but there is that Paris climate agreement. Does it still have momentum, even though the US and Donald Trump has said? So you still believe in it?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes, and COP23 is coming up. Everybody is excited about what has happened since Paris, the momentum that has been built despite the US withdrawal from COP21. huge momentum. It's going to continue. It's going to grow. That's why we believe the potential is in the trillions of dollars for private sector investment and involvement in this problem.
Thanks for your insights. It's been great chatting to you. Go and visit the website www.ifc.org. You'll find the entire report there, the Climate Investment Opportunities Report, and you'll be able to read how African business and governments can contribute to the climate change kitty and narrative as well. Thanks again for joining us, Saleem Karimjee, IFC Country Manager for Southern Africa.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. All right, let's just preview what's coming up in the next hour. Entrepreneur Russell Simmons arrived in South Africa on Tuesday ahead of the two-day Liberty VUCA Knowledge Summit.